Good afternoon. Good evening. I have this hat. I keep thinking it's morning, so I was about to say good morning. I had to think about, I was out there greeting people. I'm like, good morning. I'm chapel trained. I apologize. But welcome to Baptist Collegiate Ministries, everyone. How are y'all doing? Do y'all ever say the whole thing out, or is BCM like the cool kids way? Cool kids, BCM. Welcome to BCM, bro. Welcome to Baptist Collegiate. You know, it just gives a, no, y'all ain't with that. Okay. Hey, is there anybody's birthday today? Nobody? Nobody's birthday today? Tomorrow. Your birthday tomorrow? Is it really? Happy birthday tomorrow. I don't ask that aimlessly. Hey, listen, this is what I want to do. In honor of Converge, because I want to gift you, I want to pay for your way to Converge. Me and my wife are going to pay for you to go to Converge, all right? That's your birthday gift from us. You got your first sign up right here. Now, listen to, what's your name? Jeffrey? Big Hefe. Hefe, listen at me. All right? This is the thing about the gift. If you need the gift, take it. If you don't, pass it on to the next person who needs it. You know what I'm saying? All right? Don't be ashamed. But, hey, Hefe, what's your last name? McKinney. Hefe McKinney, we got him. You're Hefe Brown right now, all right? Welcome to the fam, bro. Oh, good. Hey, let me pray real quick, and then I will jump into it and try to get out of your way in a decent time, all right? Father, we thank you because we know that you're in this place. So we pray right now that there are open hearts, open minds to receive your word this evening. God, that you would use me, an imperfect vessel, to speak such a perfect word. Be with these students, be with me, be with all of us, God. Just let tonight be amazing, God, and let there be growth. In your precious son's name we pray. Amen. 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 Y'all don't pray in Baptist Collegiate Ministry? Or y'all, oh, okay. All right, cool. All right, so, hey, listen, so we're talking about dating, right? You guys are in the series called Going Steady. Yeah? Listen, when I was listening to Connor's message from a couple weeks ago, and he was like, yes, the Going Steady series. And listen, I grew up in the 90s. I'm an 80s baby, grew up in the 90s. The language of Going Steady reeks of 90s sitcom, all right? I don't know how many of y'all have seen 90s sitcom, and I'm sure that's where Connor got it from, right? Because when he said Going Steady, I immediately went to a Saved by the Bell episode. Any Saved by the Bellers out there? Come on, Kelly Kapowski? Zach? AC Slater? That used to be, I just like, dudes was out there, and I had no idea. I mean, I'm a kid, elementary, and these dudes are like, I'm going to ask her to go steady. I'm like, steady what? What does that even mean, right? But you guys are in this series called Going Steady, and you have a concept of, a context of what that means. You have some insight into that as you guys have talked about over the past couple of weeks. About this concept of going steady, and even last week, digging into the idea of the gift of singleness, right? And singleness is definitely a gift that you should embrace, right? And I think, in my personal, humble opinion, I think that you're single until you get married, right? So even if you're in a dating relationship, because if you fill out some paperwork and it doesn't say single, dating, married, it says single, married, widowed. So, you know, it's like, it's a couple options there, and dating ain't one of them, okay? So you're single until you are married, right? And so even in a dating relationship, you are respectful to the person you have chosen to be exclusive with, but you're also still single, right? And there's some things that you should definitely enjoy in that. And let me go ahead and give this disclaimer. I am not an expert by any means at dating, okay? I just happened to find someone who would put up with me and say, I do, right? That's just what happened with me, right? And she just happens to be amazing. And she got a good catch, I'm not one to brag or pat myself on the back, but I love God and I'm not that bad looking, If I say so myself. Listen, I'll say this. I'm a solid 7, but if you're really desperate, I can easily creep into an 8, 9. You know what I'm saying? So, fellas, y'all need to hang on to that, right? Sometimes it's like you're 6 or 7, but if they're desperate, you look more like a solid 7, strong 8, okay? It's sometimes a strong 8 is all it takes for her to say I do, all right? Don't be afraid of it. Not everybody's a 10, all right? First off, gentlemen, not everybody's a 10. Ladies, you too, okay? All right? Even with makeup on, all right? You are beautiful, but you might not be a 10, but that's okay. A strong 7 will make you a good wife, all right? All right? This is good already. You guys are learning. If I said amen, prayed, and walked off, everybody got something already, right? Okay, maybe not. No, I do think that, hey, listen, in any case, your beauty is going to be found within, and nobody can define that for you. Let me be very clear on that, right? And so it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about you. It's all going to circle back to what you think about yourself. And so even if someone is telling you all the time, hey, you're beautiful, when they stop, are you going to feel less beautiful, right? So that's the self-talk you have to give yourself. Understand you are only as beautiful as you think you are, right? So begin to reframe your mind because you are wonderfully made. And he loves you, and he created you beautifully, all right? All right. So listen, again, I'm not an expert on dating by any means, but I did recently just get married in March. So we have been married, what's today? Today's the 4th, so, gosh, I'm going to mess this up already. In one day, I think we got married on the 5th. It's the 5th or the 6th? It's the 5th. It's the 5th. And my wife's probably listening, so we'll be 9 months tomorrow. I'm just going to go with tomorrow, and if I'm wrong, I'm the man in my house, all right? 8 months. No, 9. Oh, shoot. 8 months. I'm not an expert in dating. I'm also not an expert in math, all right? No, but we got married in March, and so we've been married for several months now, and God, see how I changed that? It's all about language, man. Hide that thing. That's a 7 becoming an 8. You hide it a little bit, all right? We got married, and God has blessed us, man. We have twins on the way that are due in March, and I have 2 lovely girls. I'm so excited, right? I'm super excited. And anybody who babysits, please let me know because we're going to need some help, right? For free. All of the hands that were up just went down. But okay, on dating. So this is the thing about dating, and I again, I'm not an expert, and I would say that our journey, our story is absolutely unique. Maybe not as unique as most people would think, because I've had some friends that have kind of had similar stories. But ours isn't the typical, hey, we met, we dated for 2 years, we realized it was time to get married, and then we kind of did it, right? Our story is very different. We met 10 years ago, started dating, dated for a little while, then we broke up, and then we were kind of like off and on. I moved away for work. I left South Carolina, moved to Georgia for work, was there, and so we were off and on for the better part of 10 years, and then when I moved back, it was still kind of, when I moved back to South Carolina where she's from and she lives, we were still kind of off and on, and then there was a point where we decided to get serious about each other and make it work, right? But there was a point for me, and I really want to focus on this a little bit today. There was a point for me years ago, and I told her this, and probably I think in like 2016, I was like, hey, you're the woman I'm going to marry, which was really frustrating for her because I wasn't doing the things of a guy who says, I'm going to marry you, right? But I did make good on that promise. It just took me a few years to make good on it. But I'm doing really good right now, all right? on the scale of husbandness, I'm a solid 8.2 right now, okay? Probably dropped to a 7.6 because of the date thing that I just forgot. But I'll work my way back up. I'll cook dinner this weekend and we'll be back in there, all right? But that's kind of our story, right? And I think dating now is very different, right, than kind of when I was coming up in dating. I'm 34, and so, I got married at 34, right? Which is okay, right? And I do want to, let me throw this out here. Ring by spring is a saying, not a thing to live by, okay? It is not mandatory that when you come here, you have to get a ring by spring, right? You don't have to leave here married, all right? Now, if that's what happens to you, then albeit great, but do not force that thing, right? You understand this, in COVID, right? COVID has shooken everybody up. In COVID, divorces increased by 34%. Because people had to actually sit alone with their spouses and realize, I don't really like you like I thought I liked you, right? We've all been so busy, and you can put up with people, right? And that's kind of the chaos of married life that I figured out is you really don't spend, like throughout the week, we both work. And so she's spending 8 hours at work, I'm spending 8 hours at work. We only get a couple hours together in the evening, and then we're asleep, and then we're back up. In the morning, I'm up before her, and I'm headed to work. And so we don't really get to spend any time in the morning. We only get to spend, really we're spending a couple hours a day each evening together, right? That's all you have. And then the weekends, and you can plan your weekends where you don't spend that much time together, right? You can easily be like going golfing with the buddies, going shopping with your friends, right? You can not spend a lot of time together, but COVID took that away from everyone, right? And so I'm saying all that to say, make sure you're spending time and you got somebody that you actually like, But everybody's story looks different, and that's why I kind of share my story and our 10-year journey is because everybody's story looks different. It doesn't look one way. You don't have to get married. You don't have to have a ring by spring. Please take your time and do what works for you and be prayerful in everything. And I'm working in everything I say. Let me step back, give this disclaimer. I'm working in everything that I say with the disclaimer that you guys are praying about a spouse and that you're praying for the things that you desire, right? And that you're putting God first, right? Because understand this, more than anything, a spouse, a dating relationship, there's this big hole in you, metaphorical hole, there's this big hole in you that only God can fill, right? And if you try to put a person you're dating or a spouse in that hole, they can feel some of it, but they can't feel all of it. You guys understand what I'm saying? And so when I try to make this person feel this hole that only God can fill, I will never feel complete. No matter how much they do, no matter how much they say, no matter if they're 10, they can cook, they love kids, they clean the house, they wash cars really well. No matter what they do, it's not going to fill that hole, right? And so that hole can only be filled by God. And so your first thing, more than anything, is you have to be chasing God. So I'm working with the concept that you guys already know that. And Connor has preached that over these past couple messages about your contentment in Christ, right? And so when we're actually talking about this idea of dating, the thing about dating is it's so ambiguously defined right now in your culture, right? In our culture, mainly in your context, because this is one of the bigger issues is you have too many options and not enough boundaries. Because you got online dating, listen, it is like you can slide in somebody's DMs in 0.3 seconds. Right? And some people ain't afraid to slide in DMs. Like they have no kind of DM sliding etiquette, okay? It should be at least a one person per day, maybe week, right? Don't slide in more than one person's DMs per week, all right? Whatever person that is that you're in somebody, like you don't get a reply from somebody, so you're like, on to the next one. Like you wake up looking at your DMs like, oh, they didn't reply, on to the next one. She was looking good in chemistry class. You know what I'm saying? Nah, bruh. Right? So you have online dating, you have all these different, you have so many apps where you can swipe right, swipe left, and you're getting in all of these connections. Let's call it that. You're getting in all of these connections, but you're not setting any boundaries for yourself. Because you have to understand the emotional energy and even sometimes that physical energy that you're giving somebody, it's taking a toll on you. Right? And you're messing up the way in which you can truly and genuinely enjoy dating with somebody who you should be purposefully dating. Okay, so you have all these options. You got options, and we're not setting boundaries. And so I know Connor's talked about setting those boundaries, and that's going to be very important, right? In any kind of dating relationship. So when I think of dating, I think of anything that could be. Maybe it's a place of you guys just hanging out, getting to know each other. That means like we used to call it talking, right? So we just talking, which means, hey, there's a potential for something to happen. We're not sure. We're just trying to get to know each other a little bit, right? Then you get to know each other. And it's all kind of wrapped together. You get to know each other. Then you make that thing exclusive where it's like, hey, we're only going to talk to each other, right? And so you have those two things. 3 things I want to give you, and then I'll get out of your way, that I think should be very key in your dating life, right? In your dating life. And kind of as we begin this precursor to this, is the first thought of this is to work on you. The first step is to make sure you're good. To focus on yourself and make sure that you're somebody that's worth dating, right? That you're becoming somebody that you would actually want to marry, right? I think it's very important, right? We're really concerned about lists. Like I hear you read books and you go to these dating things and they're like, you need to make a list. Like there's some pastor who's passionate. You need to make a list about everything you want in a man. And if he doesn't meet all those things, you tell God, this ain't my blessing. And that sounds great till you realize that everybody screwed up. Right? And so I think it's okay to have a list, but maybe that list should not be what you want. Maybe that list should be who do you want to become? So maybe your focus should be who do I want to become and not necessarily who I want, because if you become a type of person, you'll attract that same type of person. And so stop looking for what you want and become what you want. I remember one time I was working out. I was working out with this dude, and he was like, man, I want me a girl that like works out and she's fit. And I'm like, bro, but you come to the gym once a week. Shoot, the girls ain't at Wendy's. You know what I'm saying? Not the one that you want. So it's like, listen, who you want to become is who you have to. And I think it's very important. When you look at Matthew chapter 13 right here, this is 3-8 and 18 through 23. And this is the parable of the sower. And I think this is very important, and it speaks to this, right? So it says this, and this is kind of long, but I want to read it. And it says, so a sower went out to sow, and he sowed. Some seeds fell along a path, and the birds came, and they devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they did not have any depth in the soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them out. Other seeds fell on soil and produced grain, and some had 100, some had 60, and some had 30-fold reproduction, right? Then when you jump down to verse 18, it says this, hear the parable of the sower, right? So this is Jesus explaining this. He says, hey, listen, when anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does it, and does not understand it, the evil one comes, there we go, and snatches away what has been sown in his heart. This is what is sown along the path. As for what is sown on the rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy, yet has no root in himself, but endures for a while. And when tribulation and persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away. As for what is sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world, deceitfulness of riches choke the word and proves unfruitful. Verse 23, and this is right here, this is where it's important. As for what is sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30. What does it look like if instead of us trying to find the right seed, we become the right soil? What if we start to do the things to make our soil the good soil that produces 100, 60, and 30? Because God gives the seed, right? And the right person could show up, but if you're not the right soil, it'll go away. You won't be able to receive it and produce. So it's important that you work on yourself, right? Spend time in your singleness, right? And I mean, again, singleness is if you're by yourself or even if you're in a dating relationship. Because even if you're dating, there is no sense of obligation to a married person. Listen, I'm married. I have a responsibility to my wife every day, right? I can't just get up and go. Those days are long gone. I can't just sit at the house and do nothing when the grass needs cut. I either got to get up and cut it, or I got to pay somebody to cut it. And I don't know if you know about me, I'm cheap. I ain't paying nobody to cut my grass, which is why I want free babysitters. So if you're a free babysitter, holler at me after this, and we'll get you signed up, right? But listen, if you're becoming the good soil, if you're working on becoming that good soil, once the seed hits, it's going to grow. Now imagine if two people who have been working on becoming good soil become seed for each other, what that turns into. How beautiful could that be, right? And so when we're talking about this singleness, I like what, if you were in chapel the other day, Tyler Frank came and he was preaching, and he had a concept that I really thought was interesting. He talked about this difference between trying and training, right? He's like, you can try stuff and you can try, you be like, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try this. He says, or you can train for this. So right now in your singleness, as you're working on yourself, this is the point where you're training to be a good dating partner and a good spouse. So therefore, when you get to that moment, you're not trying to become that. You've already trained to become that. So using this time now to train yourself, so when you get in the moment, you're not trying. You've already trained for those moments. Now, let me be clear. Those moments will throw some curveballs at you. But if you have a good foundation, you'll be okay. You got two people with good foundation who are good soil, you'll be okay, right? Difficulties come, right? So you want to train, not try. And then sometimes, and this is the thing about COVID that helped us, is the other part of singleness is we try to fill singleness with so many things, right? Like we don't want to think about the fact of being single, but sometimes it's good to just sit in your solitude. Because what's better than knowing someone else is knowing yourself. And many of you don't know who you want to date because you don't know who you are. And even if that person showed up in a shiny suit, you still wouldn't know because you don't know who you are. And so sometimes you just got to sit with yourself and figure out who you are. Like I remember before me and my wife got back together this final time, I had made the decision. I was like, listen, I got to fix who I am because I was like, there's obviously something wrong with me. All of my dating relationships had gone south. Us trying it several times had gone south, and I'm like, it's not them. It was some of them. All right, let me be clear. They all right, some of them was jacked up, right? It was not all of them. In this case, it wasn't her, right? But there was something wrong with me, and I made a decision like, okay, Justin, you got to figure out what's wrong with you and begin to work on that. So what did I start doing, right? I was already digging into my word, right? And that's very important. You want to be grounded in your faith. But there are other things outside of just the word that you have to begin to fix. So one of the things I started doing was I started going to therapy. I picked some random lady in this obscure place in Greenville. When I tell you, I was like, it was in the, you know how like you drive past those group of buildings and you got to like drive around to the back to somebody, you're like, oh no, I ain't. Like I remember going in there the first time and I parked and I just sat in the car and I'm looking around, I'm like, nah, this don't look like where no therapy go on. Like I'm thinking somebody finna get me, like this is the okie doke. Gulp. So like I was like, because for so long, literally, I mean, I'm being honest, for like a year, 2 years, because my dad had passed away like a year before that. Even before he passed away, I was like, I just got to go to therapy to start figuring some stuff out, right? It had been on me and I kept putting it off and I kept putting it off. But there was a time where I made a decision like, I got to figure out what's wrong with me so I can start figuring out all my relationships. And this didn't just help my dating relationship with her. This helped all of my relationships with my friends, with my mother, with my grandparents, with everyone. And so when I took that leap of faith and I stepped into that office with that counselor, I started to figure out myself because I had somebody who could help me see who I was and start to figure things out. And that's the step that I had to take, right? You may not have those issues, but although I will say everyone needs to go to therapy. We have free services here. This is Mental Health Week, so please set up an appointment. If you'll go to NGU Counseling on Instagram page, all you got to do is click the link and you can go there and find out a time to go talk to one of our counselors, all right? If you don't like our counselors on campus, please talk to me. I have a plethora of resources outside of campus that I can send you to, all right? But what I'm saying is that's what I had to figure out, right? And so you have to sit down with yourself and say, what am I doing wrong, right? Because we're in a place where we're a victim culture where we're like, man, it's just everybody, they don't want to act right. You know, these dudes don't want to act right. He just, like, man, forget her. All she wants is a football player. Yada, yada, yada. It's like, no, you don't know how to talk to nobody, right? So it's like, you got to start to figure out what's wrong with yourself. Stop blaming everybody else and figure out what's going on with you. Learn yourself. Become the soil, and when that seed is planted, it'll grow 100-fold, 60-fold, 30-fold, right? So you got to begin to work on you. I think as you begin to engage and get into those dating relationships, the important part here is to be clear. And I know this is going to seem like I'm talking to dudes, and this probably is in most cases. Although women, y'all can be shiesty too now. Be clear and be honest. You're two adult human beings. Be clear and be honest, right? In 2 Corinthians 8, verse 21, it says this, "For we aim at what is honorable, not only in the Lord's sight, but also in the sight of man." Honor each other, right? You're each other's brothers and sisters, and whether you marry this person or not, somebody will. And it is your responsibility to treat them right in the time that you have them until they are with either you permanently or somebody else. How terrible can it be? There's this guy, when I used to work for FCA, this story like killed me. This was one of those reckoning moments. It didn't make me get right, so it wasn't too reckoning. This was one of those moments where you're like, dude, what am I doing with my life? This guy, he worked on staff at FCA with me, and he was telling me this story about this. He had dated this lady for some years, and apparently at this point in life, he was terrible. Or no, he was a believer. He was a Christian at this point, but he was a terrible guy still. Treated her really bad, treated her all kinds of ways. She went off and got married. This dude randomly got an email from some random dude. I kid you not. He told me this story, and I was blown away because I would never do anything like this. Some random dude was like, hey, I can't even remember the guy's name. We'll say Drew for instances here, since you want to dress up as me for Halloween, all right? Right? So it's like, hey, Drew, what's going on? Hey, listen, I just want to thank you. No, he said, I want to thank you. He was like, listen, I just want to tell you that what you did to so-and-so was so terrible and so bad. And he's like, I'm not even a believer. But when she began to tell me that you were a pastor and a preacher, and she told me about the things you did, it made me have less respect for the Christian faith because of the way you treated this woman. That story could be true about a lot of you in here, right? So you have the distinct calling, the purpose to treat everyone you date with honor and respect, right? And how do you do that? You be clear and you be honest. You guys are adults, right? The worst thing you can do is, anybody in here been ghosted? I'm so sorry for your pain. Anybody in here ghosted somebody? Oh my gosh, savages. Welcome to NGU, where we breed Christian savages. Listen, as somebody in life who has both been ghosted and ghosted somebody, it's not a fun thing, right? And what you have to understand as you're growing in your relationship, listen, it's your duty, it's your responsibility to just be honest with somebody. Hey, this isn't working out the way I thought it would work out. You're still a great person. I think it's best that we just be friends. What's wrong with that conversation? You can't be afraid of having hard conversations. Leaving somebody in the blank, right, out in the open is not fair. And that's not honorable. That's not something that's honoring and pleasing to God. If it's not something you would want done to you, it's not something you should do to somebody, right? So listen, be honest, be clear. Make your intentions clear at every stage, right? Hey, this is, I think it's Not a Fan where he talks about DTR, define the relationship at the very beginning, right? There's always that moment where you're going to have to define the relationship. And generally, I'm just going to go a generalization here. Generally, it's like the woman knocking at the door trying to figure out, hey, what are we? Well, what are we? right? Hey, whoa, I just bought you a milkshake. Calm down, shawty. Well, what are we? What are we? It's like, ask one more time and we're nothing, all right? Just to be clear and honest, okay? Listen, but, I'm joking, but, I'm not joking, but the thing about that is, right, is you have to define that. And fellas, and this is another generalization, right? But I think it's mainly true, right? Especially in our context, right? Women are looking for men to lead in the relationship, right? To make those defining things, right? And you may not be, but generally women are looking for men to lead in the relationships to define those moments when things are happening. Hey, so it's okay to say, hey, this is the moment, let's go out on some dates. And listen, gentlemen, call it dates, right? Hey, let's just hang out and grab a burger. Hey, yo, me and a couple of the guys are gonna go to Cookout. Thought we'd go, I'd get you a fruit punch. You know? It's like, hey, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, listen, would you like to come with me to this place? Hey, let me take you out to lunch. And if she asks, is this a date? And you think it's a date, or you are saying it's a date, then just say it's a date. All right? Yeah, there's no macho-ness in not going, hey, are y'all dating? No, we're not dating. We're just hanging out, you know? Like, you feel better about that? Like, no, just, it's a date. Yeah, we're dating, right? So, men, define it, right? Tell them, hey, we're dating. Let's go on a date. Let me take you on a date. And those dates can be with friends, right? And those dates can be you two going out to dinner and getting to know each other, right? And maybe those first few times where you're just hanging out, maybe you want to do that in a group setting, right? To make it a little less awkward, because some of y'all can't talk at all. Y'all hold a conversation for 3 minutes, and then they'll never go on a date with you by yourself. You got chemistry? It's like, yeah, I hate chemistry. It's like, you know, you got to carry the one and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my gosh. Will you take a speech class, player? But listen, it's okay to define, it's okay to ask out on a date, and it's okay to define those things, right? And make clear. And just because you're gonna say something doesn't mean, like, you may be like, hey, I'm enjoying us dating, this has been fun. I would like for this to be exclusive. Like, I really haven't, I want you to be my girlfriend. And, you know, let's see where this goes. You don't have to be like, I want you to be my girlfriend, and I'm planning to marry you upon graduation as soon as I take off my cap and gown, right? Calm down. Pump your brakes a little bit, right? Like, hey, I mean, you guys are younger, right? Like, I was older, right? I was older. So for me, like, when me and my wife started dating, initially I texted her this time. We were texting. I said, hey, let's go out to lunch this Sunday, right? Let me take you out to lunch. We went and had lunch at P.F. Chang's, and hey. Hey, look, I walked in there dap on her, you know what I'm saying? Shoot, I walked in there dap, had the button down on, you know. Hey, next thing you know, you know what I'm saying? But, okay, so listen to this. So we had that moment where I said, hey, let's go on a date. Let me take you out. Let's go grab lunch. On Sunday, we went to lunch, and then we dated. We went on several dates over the next several weeks, and then there was a point where we were sitting down. We were eating ice cream. We were having ice cream over at off of Woodruff at the cookie and ice cream place out there. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Next to the high school? Marble Slab? I don't know. I can't remember what else. It's Cold Stone and American Cookie and that place out there, right? So we were sitting out there eating ice cream, and we were just talking. I said, hey, I want us to be serious. Like, I want us to be in a relationship, and I want to pursue you as my wife. Now, let me put in context. We had 10 years of history, okay? We weren't sophomores. We had 10 years of history, and we were at that place, right? It was at a place for us. And so we became an item, and then we worked towards marriage. A couple more months later, put a ring on that thing. A couple more months later, put another ring on it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, dudes, by the way, if you don't know, there are actually 2 rings. Somebody didn't tell me this in wedding class. But there's an engagement ring and there's a wedding band, so save your coins now. Because I'm trying to tell you, ministry ain't gonna get it, all right? All right, so be clear. Okay, I gotta get out of here. Be clear and be honest, right? So make sure this is an interview going both ways, right? You're interviewing each other, right? And at the point that it's not good for you, just make it known, hey, this is not for me. You're a great person. You can break amicably, right? You can break, hey, you're a great person, but I just don't see I don't see this lasting, right? And take your time, because you need to see every emotion of a person, right? People that jump into stuff and go full speed, I'm just like, how? Like, I need to see somebody when they mad, because when you mad, you may say some mean stuff to me, and I'm sensitive, right? I can't be with somebody who make me cry, okay? I need to know that you can be mad at me and say it gently, right? So take your time, see the emotions, see how they act, right? And I'm getting to my next point, right? Last point is see the signs and see the influence. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says this: do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Or some translations say bad company corrupts good character, right? If you're with the wrong person and you start to allow them to have influence on you, it's going to show. And that's not the person. Red flags are red flags, right? When them red flags, stop trying to, and this is people, we will, listen, when you're dating and you're infatuated with somebody, you will let those red flags fly by. I mean, you will see a red flag and be like, oh no, that was just that one time. Oh, that was just that 15th time. I promise he's working on it. And he's like, I ain't working on nothing. I am who I am. Who sent you? I am who I am. Red flags are red flags, right? You need to see this person, right? So you need to see the signs, right? So you want to see how they are around their friends. You want to see how they are around their family. Like, how do they interact with people? How do they treat people? You want to see all these things, right? Because everything's good in the honeymoon phase. Everything's good when it first starts out. But when things get tough, what's going to happen in those moments, right? So you got to recognize the red flags. You got to see the things that are happening. And when you start to see that influence taking you over, you definitely need to turn and run, right? And accept your friends accept your friends' intel, right? Because sometimes your friends recognize things that you're blind to, right? Because when you have on those googly eyes, ladies, I'm talking to you right now, all right? If it's not apparent. When you got on them googly eyes, like, oh my gosh. Have you seen him walk in the cab? He swipes his card so beautifully. I have never seen somebody scan a card in that way. It is just like, oh my, and when he was in BCM in his worship hands, have you ever seen a man worship in such a demeanor? I mean, it's like he was David, a man after God's own heart. Your googly eyes are blinding you. Because he also don't return your text 2 days in a row. And let me tell you this, he looking at his phone, right? So you got to see the signs. And when your friends start to tell you things, right, you know your friends. Sometimes your friends can be extreme. Sometimes they can be whatever. But generally your friends are trying to help lead you in the right direction if you got the right kind of friends, right? So listen, you need to work on yourself. You need to be clear and be honest. And then you need to see the signs and see the influence. And I think these are things that are going to help you foundationally in who you pursue and how you pursue, right? And how you get pursued. Both ways. Using these things, but I think the main important thing is, I would go back to the beginning, right? Are you the good soil? Is your soil able to produce 160 and 30-fold, right? That's the kind of soil you want to be. And while you're in this stage of singleness, enjoy it, right? Have those spontaneous moments with friends. Listen, your singleness will be over at some point, right? And listen, I loved my singleness, right? I could do stuff all out of the blue. Like, I remember I was living in Georgia and I got into I forget the name, IHOP Worship, International House of Prayer. They have these 24-hour prayer houses where they play live music. And I was in Macon, Georgia, and they had a house in Atlanta, and it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from me. And sometimes I'd be up at like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, I just want to go worship. So I'd drive for an hour and a half, 2 hours up there, stay up there for a few hours, and then drive back. I can do that when I'm single. If I do that right now with my wife, If I leave at 12, I better not come back. The doors will be changed, all of that, right? There are things that you can do in your singleness with your friends, by yourself. Enjoy your quiet time, enjoy your party time, whatever that looks like. Because when you're married, it changes. And I love being married. I wouldn't change it for the world. But I wouldn't have changed my time when I was single for the world either, because that was the time I needed to become who I needed to become so I could fully enjoy the time that I have while I'm married. So, Father God, we thank you for all of these students, God, who came, and I pray that they receive this message, and they receive all the messages, God, and no matter what stage of life that they are in, no matter where they're at, no matter what they're pursuing in life, that you would help them in their relationships, and I mean in every relationship, not just dating, but their friendships, and all of that. And God, that you would let them be patient and let them be purposeful in all that they pursue. And that more than anything, they would pursue you. And that would be their greatest purpose. So let us all be good soil so we can take and receive the good seed and let it come 160 and even 30 times. So we praise you, we love you, and we honor in your precious son's name. Amen.